Crash course on China one-child policy, its impact on China's population and future. China's one-child policy was a population control measure that was implemented by the Chinese government in 1979 to combat the country's rapidly growing population. The policy aimed to limit the number of children that Chinese families could have to one child per couple, with some exceptions for rural families and ethnic minorities. The policy was enforced through a range of measures, including fines, forced abortions, and sterilizations, and was only recently relaxed in 2015. Understanding the one-child policy. The one-child policy was introduced during a time when China was experiencing rapid population growth, which was putting a strain on the country's resources and infrastructure. The policy was designed to slow population growth by limiting the number of children that families could have. The policy was implemented in two phases, with the first phase running from 1979 to 2002 and the second phase from 2003 to 2015. Under the policy, families were only allowed to have one child, with some exceptions for rural families and ethnic minorities. Couples who violated the policy were subject to fines and other penalties, such as loss of employment and housing benefits. In some cases, women who became pregnant with a second child were forced to undergo abortions or sterilization procedures. Impact of the one-child policy on China's population. The one-child policy had a significant impact on China's population, with the country's birth rate dropping significantly in the years following its implementation. The policy is estimated to have prevented around 400 million births, and as a result, China's population growth rate has slowed considerably. While the policy succeeded in slowing population growth, it also had a number of unintended consequences. One of the most significant of these was the gender imbalance that emerged as a result of the policy. In some parts of China, particularly rural areas, parents placed a higher value on having a son than a daughter, and this led to a significant increase in sex-selective abortions and female infanticide. As a result, China now has a significant gender imbalance, with an estimated 30 million more men than women in the country. The one-child policy also had a significant impact on China's economy and social welfare systems. With fewer children being born, the country's population is aging rapidly, and this is putting a strain on the country's healthcare and pension systems. In addition, the policy has resulted in a shrinking workforce, which could have significant implications for the country's future economic growth. Interesting examples of the one-child policy in action. The one-child policy has had a profound impact on the lives of millions of Chinese families, and there are many interesting stories and examples that illustrate its impact. One such example is the story of Mei Fong, a journalist who wrote a book about the one-child policy called One Child, the story of China's most radical experiment. Fong's own family was affected by the policy, and she describes how her mother had to undergo an abortion when she became pregnant with a second child. Another interesting example is the case of Feng Junmei, a woman who was forced to undergo an abortion at 7 months pregnant because she had violated the one-child policy. The case caused widespread outrage both within China and internationally, and led to calls for the policy to be relaxed. In another example, filmmaker Nanfu Wang documented her own experience of growing up under the one-child policy in her documentary, One Child Nation. Wang describes how her family was forced to give up her younger brother for adoption because they had already had one child. In conclusion, the one-child policy was a controversial population control measure that had a significant impact on China's population and future. While the policy succeeded in slowing population growth, it also had a number of unintended consequences, including a gender imbalance and a shrinking workforce. Here is a poem about China's one-child policy and consequences. One child, one life. In 1979, China sought to control their population's climb. Their worries took a toll. One child per family. A strict policy in place to slow down births rapidly. A plan to save some space. But what of those who yearned for more than one sweet child? They were fined or forced to learn a lesson that was wild. Abortions, sterilizations. Consequences were dire. It caused so much devastation. The pain and loss entire. The gender imbalance too. An unintended cost. Too many boys, too few. It left families lost. This policy had its gains. The population slowed. But at what cost remains? The impact unforetold. For as the years went by, the workforce shrunk and aged. The social welfare system tried. But it could not turn the page. The policy now changed. 2 children may be had. But the impact still remains. Its effects seen ever so sad. China's one-child policy. A complex story to tell. The consequences plain to see. In families' lives it dwells. ***, start planning your next global adventure with ease and convenience with our Booking.com referral link. https://www.booking.com/index.html $8=7989335 as a great choice to plan your next trip. You can find and book flights, hotels, cars, and local attractions all in one place. And their price match guarantee ensures you're getting the best deal. Thank you for kind support our AnHub Metaverse channel, and please watch more interesting videos here.